It's not that I don't like surprises. I just don't like surprises that I don't know about. I like things that are surprising that I have the blueprints for. Give me the outline. That's all I ask. Hi, I'm Shamaya. It's like papaya, except it's not. And this is Plot Twist Please. Welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about some neurodivergent stuff. So sometimes I talk about mental health, sometimes I talk about pop culture, and today it's specifically about neurodivergent mental health because I am an autistic Black woman. Yes, autistic, absolutely. The neurodivergence has been hitting hard this week. And what I actually really wanted to talk about was something that I think plagued autistic people for a long time because it's just a really difficult concept for us. And that's the concept of change. Now, maybe you know this about autism, maybe you don't. Sit down for a minute, sit down. I'm gonna tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there were a bunch of doctors who came up with a book of diagnostic criteria for all these mental illnesses / neurodevelopmental disorders / disabilities / et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In that little book, they decided that one of the key components of autism was being attracted to or finding comfort in sameness. And that, for me, rings 100% true. Now that, of course, can mean something different based on who you are, based on the autistic person, that can mean something completely different. But for me, it honestly just means wanting to eat the same foods or cooking the same foods or wanting to wear the same kinds of fabrics or wanting to know exactly how my day is gonna go before I step into it, like having an hour by hour schedule. Because honey, listen, I got my planners, I got my calendars, I've got my schedules, okay? And they are managed to a T. Like, I myself am shocked sometimes. Sameness. We like for things to be the same. And change and transitions that, happen with life, because life be lifing sometimes, are really hard for us. Big life events and transitions like moving to a new city or going to a new school or graduating from college or graduating from high school or going through friendship transitions. Like maybe you're not friends with somebody anymore, you're not as close as you used to be, or somebody moves away, or your favorite peanut butter becomes discontinued, or your favorite brand of loaf of bread is no longer available in your city, and that messes with your schedule because you're used to using that exact same kind of loaf of bread for your breakfast or for your PB&J, and all that to say, change is hard. And it's just one of those things that makes me want to pull off my eyelashes one by one. But fear not, this can be remedied, okay? The desire to maintain things exactly as they are is not realistic, and it doesn't make for a very flexible way to live. It doesn't make for a very well-rounded human being. And so even as an autistic adult, it can be really hard for us to come to terms with things changing. But I am here to offer you a few tools that you may be able to use for an autistic child and an autistic adult. Because listen, resources out there that are useful for both autistic children and autistic adults is maybe as rare as finding tasty vegan cheese. I have yet to find it. If somebody else has found it, send me a link, send me something, because your girl is out here struggling, trying to not be lactose intolerant. And unfortunately, I fear, just loves a good cheese plate. I've lost my train of thought. One thing you can do to help an autistic person, whether that is a child, a friend, a loved one, yourself, deal with change is planning ahead. So what I used to do for the autistic children that I taught was I would have something called a social story available to them. So a social story could be pictures or phrases or something that symbolizes the steps that need to be taken once that change happens. So say that someone is going to a new school, right, and they're 5. It could be useful for that 5-year-old to have pictures of what it's gonna look like to walk into the school, what it's gonna look like to meet their teacher, what it's gonna look like to put their backpack in their cubby, things of that nature, where it's something that they can easily visualize and be able to recognize in real time once that change actually occurs. Kind of like a little bridge, Something that I found useful as an autistic adult is making sure that I have visuals available to me, because I'm a very visual person and visual learner, making sure that I have little snapshots to refer to when I am enduring that change. For example, if I'm going to eat at a new restaurant one day, I will have the menu available, I'll have it up and ready for me before I even get to the place, before I'm even on my way to the place. I will have a map, I will know where I'm supposed to go. I will know what the protocol is when I get there. 9 times out of 10, I will make a reservation if I'm going to a place that's new, or I will have images on Instagram or on the restaurant's website that I can refer to that let me know that that's what the place is gonna look like, that's what the vibe is gonna be, that's, you know, if it's a fancier place, now I know. If it's a more laid back place, now I know how to prepare, what to wear. Now I know what kind of energy I need to have in the space. You know, I know what to expect. I tell you what, if I could rule a kingdom, I would be the queen of ordering the things in my head before I even get to the restaurant, of knowing exactly what I'm going to be eating before I sit down at my table. I would say that I am the queen of knowing what I'm going to order way beforehand. If I don't know what I'm going to order, 9 times out of 10 it's because I've been to that place before, or because the menu is so small that it's not hard to choose. Another thing that's really useful for dealing with change is knowing how to regulate your emotions. I've experienced both firsthand and secondhand, as someone who's autistic and as someone who's worked with autistic children, that our emotions can become really dysregulated when we're experiencing change. Like, it can be really easy for us to be frustrated or upset when things are changing, or when we sense that things are about to change. Even as a young child, when I sensed that things were about to change, like when I sensed that we were moving soon, or when I learned that we were moving, or it felt like a friendship was dissipating, I would have really intense emotional reactions that seemed to come out of nowhere. But for me, it was just me feeling really dysregulated over my environment changing. It'll be like, what's going on? But it actually made sense based on the bubbling up of the emotions and the environmental changes happening. Like, I know I'm just a ray of sunshine, but also sometimes I be having big feelings that don't feel good to me, which is very human. And I think when things like that happen for autistic people, what it is actually a reflection of is our feeling of a loss of control. What that means is that we need to figure out a way to ease into that mode of lacking control and be okay with that, or find other ways that we can maintain control in our lives. Which brings me to the third tip. The third tip is to figure out what is a good outlet for you. Like, what is an outlet where you can either maintain control, maybe through your artistic passions, maybe through singing or playing an instrument or dancing, or, you know, playing a video game, or writing down your feelings, or maybe it's not about maintaining control. Maybe it's about easing into that mode of lack of control and really processing that and what that feels like. I think something that's been really apparent to me about the autistic experience is that it can be extremely difficult to boil down what we're feeling, because the way that neurotypical people explain feelings doesn't necessarily resonate with us. It'd be like, translation, what are you actually saying? Honestly, if somebody were to ask me what sadness felt like, I would definitely be explaining a physical sensation. Like, for me, feelings boil down to physical sensations. Like, if someone asked me to describe sadness, I would probably say it feels like something is pulling down on me, or feels like there's weight in my chest or in my throat. And if someone were to explain anger, I'd probably say, well, it feels like there's just something pushing out of my head. Like, there's something like little pricklies, like little pricklies trying to like escape my brain. Or maybe it would feel like something hot on my back. But that is what emotions feel like to me. But I don't think that's the way neurotypical people explain emotion. I feel like when you ask a neurotypical person what an emotion feels like, they give you other synonyms for that emotion that may not necessarily resonate for an autistic person like myself. And so even if you were going through an experience of, you know, your environment changing and that being uncomfortable for you and your emotions really boiling up because of that environmental dysregulation, like, I feel like it would be really hard for you to explain that to a neurotypical person of what that actually feels like. But I know exactly what it feels like. You know, it'd be like, it's not translating. The communication is not communicating. But that's honestly why I feel like it's extremely important when you're autistic to be able to understand how to communicate what you're feeling, even though for some autistic people it's harder than others because of a condition called alexithymia. It is so important to be able to do that in a relationship or with people who are your caretakers or with people who are, you know, your helpmates or your partners or people in life who help you make sense of the world around you. It's like a little bridge, just a little. And that leads me to the final piece of, I mean, not really advice, because I don't want to get sued, y'all. I'm not trying to get sued up in here. Piece of knowledge that I will offer from my personal experience, not as a professional or as a psychiatrist, psychologist, or anyone who's licensed to offer medical advice. But the only other thing that I would offer you is to communicate these uncomfortabilities with change to the people who are safe for you. And emphasize that notion of like people who are safe. Like I'm being specific about that part because as autistic people, I feel like it's not really easy for us to be able to know who is safe for us. So, you know, do your due diligence, do your research, do your little typey type, tap, tap, click, click. And in terms of like your brain and your intuition, feeling in the moment to determine who is safe, and know that it is okay to say, I'm uncomfortable with this change. It makes me sad that you're moving away, or it makes me sad that we're all graduating school, you know, middle school, or this is a new restaurant, this is a new mall, this is a new environment that we're about to step into and I could really use your support. Or I'm going to have a little trouble with this and I want you to know that I'm trying. Yeah. Explaining that to people really does go a long way because it also frees you up to not be holding all of that anxiety in so that it doesn't come out through some emotional outburst later on that could potentially damage your relationships. You know, change is a part of life and it's really tricky for even people who aren't autistic. It's really hard and it's one of those things that you are just going to get used to experiencing, and the better you get at it, the stronger you will be. And you will be stronger for it. You really will. It's not the end of the world. And frankly, I'm someone who believes that if ever you feel like something is lost through a life transition or change, then something is also gained in the end. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Press that like and share button if you wanna. And stay weird. Bye.